Do you like vegan chicken nuggets? I do. This is my version of the Beyond Chicken Nugget, and it is spot on from taste, texture, and honestly, a better breading, because that's one of the things that I think the Beyond Nuggets fail at. And you can make it at home, and it's really not that hard. I made this using Plant Basics Plant Protein Pea Protein crumbles. It's a textured protein that's made from peas. Now, I know Beyond doesn't use peas, they use fava bean protein, but currently you can't find textured fava bean protein. Pea protein, I know, has a great chew, bite, and it holds a lot of moisture, so it keeps these things juicy. Now, I'm pretty much gonna follow the ingredients label on the Beyond Nuggets to make these, and they're gonna come out spot on. So let's make them. They're really good.
Okay, so let's start with 1 cup of our fakemeats.com pea protein. So you can see these are like larger crumbles, larger than what we want for chicken nuggets. We want to make them smaller. So we're just going to toss these into a food processor and just quickly pulse up until you can see these are much smaller crumbles. So we're just going to toss that into a bowl, and now we need 3 tablespoons of Vital Wheat gluten. Now for all you non-gluten people, I am working on a replacement. It's difficult. There is really nothing that works as good as gluten, but I'm working on it. 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast, 1 tablespoon of arrowroot starch. Now on the Beyond label, they have food starch modified. We never know that the way they modified. I believe it's for a binder. Arrowroot's gonna work good here. We need 1 teaspoon of soy lecithin. That's gonna be like your emulsifier, keeping things together. 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning, which is just garlic powder, onion powder, sage, thyme, ginger, and nutmeg. Now we're gonna whisk this together, and we're gonna whisk it together really well to make sure that none of these powders have any clumps. Now we're going to regretfully add 1 cup of water. Now I say regretfully because I forgot to add my favorite ingredient, methylcellulose. Methylcellulose is a little bit tougher to mix in once you've already mixed in the water, so we just need 1.5 tablespoons that we're gonna slightly powder snowflake over the top. I think that's gonna work, and then we just need to mix that in. Now, one of the ingredients that caught my eye on the Beyond label is sodium phosphate, which is commonly used in a lot of different meats, canned tunas, things like that, to keep the food juicy, preserved, and add a touch of flavor. Now, I read a really interesting study that evaluated alternatives for sodium phosphate, and one of the items in the study caught my eye. Pectin. Pectin's really easy to get. You can get it over the counter, and it's just from fruit. It gels fruit. So I thought that would actually work really well. Maybe not as a flavor enhancer, but something to keep this juicy. It totally makes sense. So I wanted to keep that under the 2% threshold of the weight, so we're going to be using 1 tablespoon of this Sure Gel liquid pectin. So at this point, we're just going to give it a mix, throw a cover on it, and let it rest for at least 20 minutes. We need those 20 minutes for everything to hydrate up.
Now, before we go any further, I want to thank fakemeats.com for sponsoring today's video. They're the ones that provided me the textured protein. They have a whole line of Plant Basics textured protein. Everything from ground, chunks, and strips, which are all made from soy, and of course the crumbles, which are made from pea protein. And you can make so much using these. Fakemeats.com is the go-to spot for their huge selection of plant-based jerkies, meat substitutes, and a bunch of other fake meat specialty items. It's where I buy my egg replacers, gluten, protein powders. They carry all the big brands along with some you might not have heard of yet. And because I like convenience, they made the site super easy to navigate. You could use the drop-down menus to find all of the different categories and narrow down your product selection from vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, I mean, just really whatever you're looking for. And they have free shipping options to the USA for shelf-stable items. So gang, make sure you click the link in the description below and head over to fakemeats.com and use code SAUCE to save 15% on Plant Basics through the end of July. Fakemeats.com, thanks for sponsoring today's video and providing me with all of these textured proteins. I just love them, they're so good.
Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. These are hydrated up. All we need to do now is add some fat. Our fat is gonna be a coconut oil fat mixture that I made using methylcellulose and some coconut oil. Now this I made for a previous video where I made some burgers, and you only need a little bit of it for each recipe. I'm gonna be using about 1/8 of the entire tray that I use. It's not gonna come out to be that much. So we're just gonna break this into smaller chunks and then hand kind of like knead it into the mixture. That's gonna do a few things. That's gonna kind of get it intertwined between all of those gluten strands, and then hopefully create like textured layers in the end, giving you a more chicken-like appearance. Once we have that mixed in, all we're gonna do is form our nuggets. Now normally you would just make nuggets, but Beyond, what we're mimicking is kind of like strips. So we're gonna do kind of like nugget strip-like textures, and then we're just gonna toss those into a steamer. Now we need to steam these for about 20 or 30 minutes or so. That's gonna firm up the methylcellulose on its first round. Cool thing about methylcellulose is it firms when you cook it, but then when you re-cook it, it gets extra firm. So it's gonna resemble that chicken-like texture even more. Now they're completely steamed. Now we need to let them rest for at least an hour. I'm gonna let them rest overnight. That's gonna allow the gluten to settle, everything to kind of settle down. It's gonna give us a very good chicken texture in the end.
Okay, so you don't need to let these rest overnight, but that's what I did. The longer they rest, the more compact that gluten's gonna kind of settle down. So we're gonna make it kind of like a buttermilk mixture. We're just gonna cover these with a little bit of plant-based milk, and we're gonna use a little squirt of lemon juice, which might separate, okay? And I'm just gonna get in here and just kind of mix a little bit. This is gonna make these juicier and give them a ton of flavor. So at the moment, let's just set these to the side. For our Beyond breading, we're gonna do a cup of flour, about a teaspoon of salt. Now we really wanna up that chicken flavor, and on the Beyond label, it just says like seasonings, part of it being like garlic powder, onion powder. So again, I'm just gonna use some Bell's poultry seasoning, which I really think is going to up that chicken flavor in our nuggets, along with some onion powder, garlic powder, and a decent amount of fresh cracked black pepper. Let's just give this mixture a whisk. So at this point, we're just gonna do like a double dredge. And that looks good for the first dredge, so we'll just kind of set these out to the side. So now just a few at a time, let's back into the thick milk mixture. Don't know why that thickened up. Oh, I'm messing up my wet hand, dry hand here. And then our double battered. They're looking pretty good. Now this is gonna be kind of a thick breading, so I'm gonna actually fry it a little low. Let's toss some oil into our Dutch oven, just about 2 or 3 inches of oil. We're gonna heat that up to about 355 degrees. I think that's gonna be perfect frying temperature for these. And we're gonna fry them for about 6 or 7 minutes until they're nice and golden. I think that's it. That's all you're gonna need. That's gonna cook them all the way through.
I mean, and look at these. They are coming out absolutely perfect. I cannot wait to bite into these. So now we just need to make a sauce. So this is just a quick recreation of the sauce from the place that's not open on Sundays, which I will never name. So we're gonna do an equal part of a little bit of mayo, some Dijon mustard, agave, and your favorite plant-based barbecue sauce. Now I gave it a real quick taste. This is pretty spot on. Let's give the nuggets a taste and see what Monica has to say.
I mean, look at these. Cheers, they're gonna be hot. This is gonna be like, cheers.
The crispiness is amazing. And then the bite is really good.
The flavor.
Chickeny, and the not Sunday sauce is great.
I think I went a little over on the poultry seasoning, but other than that, I mean. So you've had the Beyond nuggets. This is what I was mimicking. What do you think?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have even known there was something different.
Yeah.
They taste just like a regular chicken nugget, like the Beyond nuggets do. These are just as good. I can't remember if the Beyond nuggets had this much crisp on the outside. I don't think they did. This is a little crispier, but
yeah.
So it's just as good with a little bit more crisp.
Super juicy. I'm really happy about the juiciness level, and I really do think that has something to do with that Shurjo. I'm gonna play a little bit more with adding pectin. And I do believe that I nailed that Beyond flavor and texture. Lunch, baby. It was lunch.
Yay.